Hello, welcome to the Essential Oil Science Series, video number 7, From Mouth to Blood. I'm at a lovely little park. Look at these cute little pink and grey galahs down here. They're cute little animal birds. They eat things like this, these gum nuts or honky nuts. So it's a beautiful day. I've got quite a bit to get through, so I'm going to do my best. And a little bit of a different format today. I'm going to go over last week's experiment first and then jump into some chemistry, because that's the transition from what were we doing last? Oh, from aromatic use of oils to internal use of oils. Alright, so in last week's experiment, I hope you really enjoyed last week's experiment. I think it's really cool. It's actually part of my background. I did some psychophysics as part of my cognitive science PhD, and that's the area I worked in. So this is an example of a psychophysics experiment. So you took an oil, you breathed it in through your mouth, down into your lungs, and then when you breathe it back out again through your nose, you can smell the oil. You can tell what oil it is. But if you breathe in through your nose and then breathe back out through your nose, you can't smell the oil. And why is that? Well, it's partly because of adaptation. You adapt to smells pretty quickly, actually. So as you're breathing it in through your nose, you adapt to that smell. So when it comes back out again, you're not as sensitive to it anymore, so you can't smell it. And your brain's already registered that compound is in the air, so it doesn't need to do it again, basically. It's an efficient way of doing things. So what's the exciting part of this experiment is that, what color can I use now? Let's do some white. The exciting part is that if you breathe in through your mouth, hold it in your lungs for 30 seconds, and then breathe it out through your nose again, you'd expect that you'd be able to smell it, because that works when you hold your breath for 2 seconds, but you can't tell what oil it is, or it becomes very difficult to tell what oil it is. And why is that? Well, simply because the concentration of the oil has gone down as it's been sitting here in your lungs. So where's it all going? Well, we can all guess this. It's being absorbed into the blood as it's sitting there in the lungs. So within 30 seconds, you can basically empty a lung full of air from all of its essential oil. I think it was Dr. Hill. I have in my notes from one of the conventions I went to that Dr. Hill said that aromatic use of oils is the most efficient way of getting oils into the body, and you can understand why. If you opened up your lungs, all the little alveoli in there, open them up, spread them out, the surface area would be the size of a small room. So that's a lot of surface area inside the lungs, and it's a very thin membrane, and it's made for getting gases across into the blood. So it's a very efficient way of getting oils into the blood. I made some quick calculations, and I figured that if you're in a room, an average size room, diffusing some oil, let's say you put 4 drops in there and you're diffusing for 4 hours, I make a rough estimate, according to this thing, where it took 30 seconds to empty a lung full of air of its oil, every time you breathe, which takes usually about 4 seconds, you're using about 13% of the oil that's in the air. So if you do that, if you're breathing normally for over a period of 4 hours with the 4 drops in the diffuser there, you probably end up extracting about 1 drop of oil over that 4-hour period, and that 1 drop is going to be going straight into the blood. Whereas if you apply this, 1 drop to your skin, I've read some research showing that up to 80% of it can just hang around there in the skin. So this is much more efficient. This is aromatic use of oils is a very efficient way of getting, let's say, up to a drop of oil straight into the bloodstream over about a 4-hour period. Okay, so that's all very exciting. Now we're switching from aromatic to internal use of oils, and I'm going to go back to an oil that we talked about last week, and that's wintergreen. And there's a great experiment you can, and probably, I don't know, maybe should do with your kids here. Take some wintergreen oil, pop it into some water. This is a glass of water here, and if you mix it around, what you'll find is that the oil sinks to the bottom. So this is unusual. Most oils have a density a little bit lower than water, so they usually float on top. So wintergreen is one of the unusual oils that is more dense than water. It's only slightly more dense, so it forms these lovely little pink droplets in the bottom of the glass. Try it out. You can do this with your kids. It's a whole lot of fun. And I have to be careful here with the FDA and the TGA and all of those people on my back. It's got that childproof lid for a reason. You can overdose on this stuff, but the other day I may or may not have put a couple of drops in a glass of water and swigged it. And feel free to try that yourself. Where if you go onto WebMD, it talks about wintergreen. It says there's insufficient evidence that it does this, and this, and it lists all the things that it possibly can do. So let's get out there and start building some evidence. In fact, I'm going to show you some evidence that, or at least something that suggests that wintergreen can be a useful oil. So one of my children has an ongoing tummy issue that gives her a whole lot of pain. So one day I decided to start recording her pain levels, and after I'd tried it myself, I decided to administer give her some wintergreen to see if it helped with her comfort levels. I'm trying to be compliant here. So here it is, experiencing fairly high levels of pain during this period. Applied some wintergreen. She drank some wintergreen, and you can see what happened after that time period, which may or may not have been caused by the wintergreen. You can decide for yourself. And then again, experiencing a little bit of more pain later on in the day. Drank some wintergreen again, and then she went to sleep, so it's hard to tell what happened, but her pain levels were in this region here. Next day, woke up, experienced some pain pretty early on in the day, drank some wintergreen again, and you can see what happened. And this kind of matches, this time scale here matches what's out there in the data. And in fact, I'm going to give you a link to a great paper which talks about wintergreen and why it can be toxic if you take too much of it, and what levels are considered toxic, etc., etc. So I'll put the link up there in the description. And it's a great paper. Take a look at it. It's very well written and easy to read. So this week, very simply, for your experiment, I just want you to experiment with wintergreen. You know, either doing something like this or something more like that, depending on what comes up during your week. But experiment with wintergreen, and put your comments down below. I really want to hear what you find in your experimenting with wintergreen. By the way, birch is very similar. You can do similar things with birch. All right, see you next week.